At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker for this evening. It is Josue Ayala. We first met Josue at Planta Nativa 2 years ago. He stayed around our booth and asked a lot of questions about native plants and about the Native Plant Project. He eventually became a member, and then he showed an interest in being on our board of directors. So he got voted into the board of directors, and then he is now holding the position of vice president. It's been a real pleasure working with him. He's responsible, he is a Texas master naturalist, and he has a background in social work, but he right now works as an education specialist at Quinta Mazatlan, where he uses his communication skills to connect people with nature. He's responsible for starting up our partnership with Entree Film Center in Harlingen. And this has resulted in a bartering system between us and Entree, where they come and film our programs and edit them for YouTube. And in return, we are landscaping the property in back of their building in Harlingen with native plants, and it's very lovely, and it's still a work in progress. And so that's been a wonderful partnership. Josue is also responsible for involving the Native Plant Project in a gardening event last spring, where native trees were planted at La Unión del Pueblo Entero, or Lupe, in San Juan. And these trees were donated by Sue Griffin and Billy Snyder, and they're doing well still there. Also, Josue donated some shrubbery, which I'm not sure they're paying as good attention to, are they? Anyway, yeah. So anyway, that might need to be patched up. But it's been a really, like I said, it's been a wonderful thing working with Josue. This evening, he is going to be speaking about the special relationship between our lower Rio Grande Valley, I should say, bats, and the local palms, particularly our native Sable Mexicana. So with that, let's welcome Josue.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's so nice to see y'all here tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the presentation, and I hope y'all enjoy. Well, bats are among nature's most misunderstood animals, and no other group of mammals has been shrouded in mystery, myth, and misinformation as bats. They abound in mythology and folklore, where they are normally portrayed as sinister and generally undesirable creatures. And historically, bats have suffered from a bad public image. Many people regard them as common carriers of rabies, and as blind, dirty, and ugly creatures that try to become entangled in human hair. In fact, however, bats are not blind. They can see quite well, especially in the dark. They rarely carry rabies, and they don't fly into people's hair or make them go crazy. That's a myth. Bats avoid people. In reality, bats are intelligent, fascinating creatures with remarkable abilities. Not only can they fly, which is a trait unique among mammals, but they can do so in complete darkness, navigating obstacles and catching insects midair. And their diets are just as diverse, ranging from insects, pollen, nectar, fruit, and in some cases, ripe flesh and blood. Some bats live solitary lives, while others live in colonies that form colonies of millions, and many have evolved incredible strategies for survival, from slowing down your body processes to endure cold, and then to migrating thousands of miles for better living conditions. Now, I used to wonder, how do bats fly? I always imagined that they just extended their arms and flapped them up and down like birds, but I was wrong, actually. So let's take a close look at a bat's wing. This part here is sort of like its palm. It also has a tiny thumb, and then 4 very long fingers stretched out, connected by a thin web of skin. There we go. So that's looking a little familiar, right? So in a way, a bat's wing is really just a giant webbed hand. So instead of flapping arms like birds, bats stay aloft by sort of slapping the air with their flexible webbed fingers, giving them this incredibly precise and acrobatic flight. And it's one of the reasons that they can twist, turn, hover, and even snatch an insect midair with pinpoint accuracy. So the second largest order of mammals after rodents, bats comprise about 20% of all classified mammal species worldwide, with over 1,400 species. Bats live nearly everywhere on Earth, with the exception of the polar regions, the highest mountains, and some of the remotest islands. And in the United States, there are 43 species of bats, while Texas has 33. And from previous reports and studies, it stated that there are 14 species of bats in the Rio Grande Valley, which is about a third of the bats found in the United States, and about half of the species found in Texas. So let's take a second to meet some of these species. The first is the Mexican free-tailed bat. This is one of the most common bat species in Texas and in the Rio Grande Valley. And despite their small size, they are among the most remarkable mammals in North America. These bats feed primarily on moths. They also consume a variety of other flying insects, from beetles, flies, true bugs, and ants, making them important allies to farmers and ecosystems alike. The Mexican free-tailed bat are excellent flyers. They're capable of reaching average speeds of around 60 miles per hour and a maximum record speed of just under 100 miles per hour. And their long tails extend past their tail membrane, which gives them their common name. Mexican free-tailed bats live in diverse habitats as well, from hollow trees, crevices, under bridge, caves in certain parts of the state, right? Colonies often number in hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions. In North America, they're migratory, traveling seasonally between central and southern United States and Mexico. And each summer, females gather in massive maternity colonies. So, every year, Mexican free-tailed bats return to Texas to inhabit select guano caves, and forming some of the largest bat colonies on Earth. And Bracken Cave, just outside of San Antonio, is especially famous. And so I'm gonna ask the audience a question, just throwing some numbers out there. And if you know, let's not spoil it, but I talk about it a lot. Can y'all guess how many bats live in Bracken Cave every summer? 2 million? Okay, that's a pretty good guess. 3 billion? How much? 500? 500,000 maybe? So before we go any higher, Bracken Cave is home to more than 15 million Mexican free-tailed bats, believe it or not. This makes it not only the world's largest bat colony, but also one of the greatest concentration of mammals anywhere. In fact, my own interest in bats began at Bracken Cave. I first visited in 2022. There's this great nature documentary, Deep in the Heart, that came out, voiceover by Matthew McConaughey. It's a real Texas film. But it features all sorts of natural treasures of Texas, and I had never heard of Bracken Cave, and so I just joined the Master Naturalist chapter up in Tarrant County, and a fellow that was an acquaintance of mine was going to take a trip, and I just happened to be in San Antonio at the time, and this is where it all began. Since then, I've gone back 3 times, and I plan to keep returning, because no matter how many times I've witnessed it, the sight of millions of bats filling the sky is truly unforgettable, and I actually have some videos to show you that I've taken with a little bit of backstory on Bracken Cave. So take a look at this, everyone. In 1992, Bat Conservation International acquired Bracken Cave to protect its incredible bat colony. And each evening, millions of bats swirl upwards in a tornado-shaped ascent, and it's the only way that they can gain altitude, since bats can't fly straight up. So they sort of have to spiral themselves above the hill country before they disperse to go eat. Let's watch that again. Look at that. That's a bat-nado. And it's beautiful. It's so beautiful there. I'm very envious of the master naturalists up in Bear County because, I mean, they are just volunteering there all the time. I bet it's so great. Let's look at another video. So this is the first video I ever took in 2022. Let's look at 2023. There we go. So Bracken Cave doesn't have a well-documented discovery story, but local lore says that early settlers once followed what looked like smoke that was drifting through the sky, and following it led them to the mouth of Bracken Cave. And so this video is actually taken up here above the cave. You can see there's a little infograph up there. You can actually, leave this seated area, walk around to the top of the cave, and that's where this perspective's coming from. They're so close to you. And if you're curious as to how large adult bats usually get, this is what they tell you. Take both of your thumbs, place them together, and then both your fingers out like this. This is essentially the size of a full-grown, or average full-grown next to the retail bat. They're like little chicken nuggets, and they're just flying over you. They're really incredible. Let's see what else I've got. This is the latest video I took. This is this summer. Here we go. So each mother gives birth to a single pup, and it leaves it behind when she flies out to feed at night. And when the mothers return before dawn, they're actually able to find their young among thousands using unique calls and scents, which is a remarkable act of recognition in one of nature's most crowded nurseries. Let's look at that again. And it just doesn't stop. It just keeps going. There's millions and millions of them. It's super awesome. And their nightly emergence can be tracked on weather radar as they rise to altitudes over 3,000 meters. And it's even bat-shaped, too. if you take a look at that, right? That's so cool. Look at all those bats up there. So that's the wonderful Mexican free-tailed bat. But let's continue. So among the tree-roosting bats of Texas are the northern and southern yellow bats. Their names reflect their golden fur, which blends seamlessly with one of their favorite roosts, the dry fronds of palm trees. And because of their similar appearance, these two species are often difficult to tell apart. But generally, the northern yellow bats are slightly larger, but both species share broad ranges. And in the RGV, they often cohabitate in roosts. So the southern yellow bat, one of the rarest and most restricted bats in Texas. It's a year-round resident of Brownsville area, and like its northern cousin, it's most often found tucked into the dried fronds of native sable palms, or some introduced Washingtonia palms as well. And its yellow-brown fur provides excellent camouflage among the fronds, and it makes it nearly invisible to predators and people alike. And despite its presence, little is known about its biology in Texas. And then the northern yellow bat's range, across from the southeastern United States, closely follows that of Spanish moss, which is where it most often roosts. And in South Texas, this species also takes advantage of the dried fronds of palm trees, where individuals will remain well hidden among the dead leaves. And like its southern counterpart, little is known about the northern yellow bat in Texas, although records indicate that it is a year-round species, and sightings suggest that it's relatively rare in the state. So let's just keep these two in mind, because we'll circle back to their link with the palm trees later in the presentation. Next, known for its large size and striking fur, the hoary bat is one of the most distinctive bat species in the RGV. And with frosted, dark fur, a yellow throat patch, and bold two-toned wings, it's not easily confused with any other bat. The hoary bat are powerful flyers as well, and they have these strong preference for moths, which can make up more than 90% of their diet. And they'll also consume beetles, flies, true bugs, grasshoppers, termites, dragonflies, and wasps. Here in the RGV, the hoary bats roost solitarily in trees, with preferences including oak and ash trees. Next, the eastern red bat roosts in the foliage of deciduous trees, and despite their striking red color, they are masters of camouflage. When curled up in their furry tail membrane and hanging by a single foot, they resemble a dead leaf swaying in the breeze, making them nearly invisible to predators. And remember how small they are, right? Pretty excellent camouflage. Next, we have the silver-haired bat. Now, this one's easily recognized by its frosted appearance, and unlike many bats that hunt high above, the silver-haired bats often forage close to the ground, where they capture soft-bodied prey such as moths and even spiders. And their diet includes many insects considered pests to people, agriculture, and forestry, making them valuable allies to humans. And then we've got the big brown bat, which is a flexible generalist, both in where it lives and what it eats. These bats are powerful pest controllers, consuming large numbers of crop and forest pests such as the cucumber beetles, scarab beetles, snout beetles, stink bugs, leaf hoppers, and moths. A single reproductive female can eat her body weight in insects each night, and a colony of 150 big brown bats can eliminate enough cucumber beetles in one summer to prevent up to 33 million rootworm larvae from hatching. So that's pretty good to have. Next is one of my favorites. This is the evening bat, and it's a versatile tree roosting species, using everything from tree cavities, loose bark to Spanish moss, and even the parasols at Quinta Mazatlan, which is where I took this photo. Every morning I'll open up the parasols and I'll find 3 or 4 of them every morning, really. It's very nice to get this close to them, and my goal eventually is to have a photo of every single species if it's possible. But this is the first one that I've got, which is really great. And it's super cute. Look at them. I love their ears. They're so beautiful. So in the RGV, they're most often associated with oaks and mesquite. And their diet is centered on beetles, though they also consume a variety of other small night-flying insects. And while the role in Texas agriculture has not been deeply studied, evening bats are likely important pest controllers, particularly against cucumber beetles in corn and cotton fields. The tricolored bat gets its name from the unique banding of yellow and brown along the hairs of its back. And like many hibernating species, it faces serious threat from white nose syndrome. So what is that? Well, let's take a look. So white nose syndrome is a fungal disease that affects hibernating bats, disrupting their sleep. It causes them to wake up frequently during the winter. This burns through their stored fat reserves and often leads to dehydration and starvation. And since its discovery in 2006, the disease has spread across North America, devastating bat populations, and with some colonies declining by more than 90%. And because of this, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has proposed listing the tricolored bat as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. But you can see that the fungus collects around the snout, around the nose. That's where it gets the white nose. Next, we have the Eumomyotis. The Eumomyotis is often associated with open water, where it can be seen foraging just above the surface of streams and ponds shortly after sundown. And although it's primarily a bat of the Big Bend area of Texas, there is a rare record from Starr County. The cave myotis is considered a year-round resident of Texas, typically roosting in caves, mines, and sometimes buildings. And interestingly, while the book Bats of Texas notes that there are no records of the species in the Rio Grande Valley, its distribution map in that same chapter shows a specimen recorded in Hidalgo County. So this discrepancy makes the cave myotis an intriguing case for further study in our region. Oh, sorry. That's just a joke, I think. The ghost-faced bat is unmistakable, right, with its flattened face, its short skull, and the curving ears that give it this unique squashed-in appearance. And typically brown to reddish-brown in color, it's a swift flyer, reaching speeds up to 23 miles an hour. And the ghost-faced bat feeds primarily on moths, too. And fossil evidence shows that this species has deep root in the Americas, with remains found in caves dating back more than 20,000 years. Oh, look at this one. The Mexican long-tongued bat. It has an unusual and somewhat mysterious presence in Texas. The first specimen was recorded in 1970 at Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, with a handful of later records from both Santa Ana and Laguna Rascosa. And unlike the insect-eating bats that dominate this region, the Mexican long-tongued bat feeds on nectar and pollen from agaves and other flowering plants. And its tongue can extend up to a third of its body length, which is perfectly adapted for reaching nectar deep in agave and cactus blossoms. And so globally, this species is considered near threatened by the International Union of Conservation for Nature. And while it's listed as endangered in Mexico, it has yet to receive the same protection status here in Texas. And finally, we have the canyon bat. So from previous reports, the canyon bat has been listed as one of the 14 species occurring here in the RGV. However, I was unable to find any verifiable records confirming its presence here. So this uncertainty highlights just how little is known about the bat community in our region. And for many species, including the canyon bat, information on their distribution, their behavior, and role in the local ecosystem remains sparse. So continued study is definitely needed to better understand the true diversity and dynamics of bats here in the RGV. So far we've looked at some incredible variety of bats that call the RGV home, but to really appreciate them, let's take a step back and ask a bigger question. Where did bats come from? Well, where did they come from in the first place? Well, let's take a quick look at their evolutionary story. So, bear with me when it comes to the big names of these early bats. The earliest known bats appear in fossil records around 52 million years ago during the Eocene epoch. And one of the first, Onychonycteris, lived in what is now Wyoming. It looked like a bat, but with some unusual features. It had claws on all 5 of its wing digits, longer hind legs, and teeth that suggest that it fed on insects. With these traits, it was likely a good climber, but unlike most modern bats, it probably could not echolocate. And at the same time, another early bat, Icaro-Nycteris, already showed signs of echolocation in the inner ear bone. Because these two species were so distinct from each other, we know bats must have evolved even earlier than these fossils suggest. This brings us to the big question: which came first? Which came first in bat evolution, flight or echolocation? Well, scientists have proposed 3 main hypotheses, 3 main ideas. The first suggests that echolocation evolved before flight, with early bats using high-pitched calls to hunt insects from the trees. The second argues that flight came first, beginning with a gliding ancestor that eventually developed powered flight, with echolocation evolving later. And then the third hypothesis proposes that flight and echolocation developed together. And so the fossil evidence we have so far points most strongly towards the first flight hypothesis. Onychonycteris could clearly fly, yet it lacked the specialized features for echolocation. So this suggests that bats took to the skies first and only later developed the ability to hunt with sonar. But even with these remarkable fossils, many details about bat origins remain a mystery. Their delicate bones don't preserve well, leaving gaps in understanding. But what we do know is that flight and echolocation together became a powerful combination, one that helped bats diversify into over 1,400 species worldwide today. So, I'd like to share this short poem that I came across in Patricia Jimenez's thesis. Her research has been foundational to what I'm sharing with y'all today, and I thought this poem captured the spirit of the yellow bats beautifully. It reads, "Using palm fronds as roosts, yellow bats await. Hide and seek on the loose is the game that they play." That's really cute. So, recent studies in the Rio Grande Valley have shown that both the southern and northern yellow bats roost in the dried fronds of sable palms. At Sable Palm Sanctuary, both species have been found sharing the same grove. Much like forest bats that prefer older, mature trees, yellow bats are most often found in mature palms. And these older palms develop tall, thick frond skirts that create stable shelters. These older palms, this structures not only reduce predation by making bats harder to reach, but it also provides protection from harsh weather and maintains a suitable microclimate for thermal regulation. But from Corpus Christi to the border, however, it's been a long tradition to trim palm trees once or twice a year simply because people think it looks tidy. But that kind of over pruning doesn't just hurt bats. It also weakens the palms themselves. Cutting off green fronds reduces photosynthesis. The spurs used to cut leaves can let in disease, And too much trimming can make the trunk very fragile in high winds. And beyond bats, intact palm skirts also provide shelter for screech owls, great horned owls, and orioles as well, not to mention insects and other critters. So by leaving palms more natural, you're protecting a whole community of wildlife, not just bats. Now this final section is inspired by naturalist Anita Westervelt and her presentation, Gardening for Bats. I can't recommend their presentation enough, and if you have an opportunity to attend her talk, and I believe there's one coming up in November at a Brownsville Gardening Club meeting, then please do. You know, what I'm going to share here is just a brief overview drawn from her research. So, at its core, gardening for bats really means gardening for insects. Most of our local bats are insectivores, and if we want to help them, we need to support the native bugs that they feed on. And the simplest way to do this is by planting native plants, which attract native insects, both day-flying and night-flying. By planting natives, we're not only helping bats, but we're supporting the whole web of wildlife that depend on them. Now, you might already be helping bats without even realizing, right? We've mentioned sable palm trees with skirts, the Texas ebony, palo blanco, honey mesquite, the retama, the Texas persimmon, live oak trees. These all provide shelter and food for insects, which in turn becomes food for bats. Now, the Texas ebony, for example, is one of the valley's top insect hosts, supporting species like Blanchard's royal moth and the black witch moth. The ebony tree also attracts an incredible variety of other native insects, making them one of the most valuable trees for wildlife here in the RGV. The palo blanco is another favorite right over here. The palo blanco is a host plant for several butterflies and moth species, and the Texas persimmon is also hosts a range of moth larvae. And the honey mesquite provides nursery for species such as, I believe I'm pronouncing this right, it's Hylibots? The mesquite moth, right over here. The Io moth, the indomitable graphic moth, and even little mesquite cicada. So, and while Anaqua is not a major larval host, right over here, it's famous for attracting a great variety of native insects in the RGV, second only to ebony. And if you don't have space for large trees, then planting dense native shrubs like Mexican hat, cowpen daisy, lantanas, goldenrods, mist flowers, and chile pequin can provide shelter and nectar for insects that bats will hunt at night. And I believe we have a few of those available for donation if anyone is interested in supporting our night flying friends. So in the end, helping bats isn't complicated. Every small choice we make, every native plant that we keep, and every palm frond that we let be helps keep our skies alive. And the bats will thank you in their own quiet way. Thank you. The last thing I'd like to share with y'all is, if you have any questions about how you can go out to Bracken Cave, you're more than welcome to ask me. You go through Bat Conservation International. But if you don't want to travel too far from home, we actually have a very nice bat roost here in the valley that we can go visit in the summer whenever you choose to here. I've actually included it here. Take a look at this. So this is over at Mission, Texas, at the Conway Street exit on US Expressway 83. I've included the coordinates of where I like to perch. I'll take a lawn chair out there with my binoculars, and I'll try to go maybe 3 times in the summer. Around August time is best, when you can get a really nice show like this one. Let me go back. And these are, I believe, Mexican free-tailed bats with maybe a mix of other native species, but mostly Mexican free-tailed. So right now they're probably headed back down south, but I think starting from May to August is a really excellent time to be able to witness this in our own backyards. So, and that's it. take some questions, try to answer them as best as I can. Yes?
Do different bats live together now in a cave or is it?
Yeah, I think that's right. So the question was, I guess different bats can sort of cohabitate together, right? And so I believe so. There was an article written in the South Texas Border Chapter blog, I believe, of a visit that they took out to this. Sorry. That they took out to over in Mission, and they were using a device called a baton. And what that baton does is that it picks up the echolocations of bats flying above your head, and it takes those high pitch frequencies that we can't really hear, brings them down to a level that we can. And so, and also if you have that plugged into your laptop with an app that you can download, it actually gives you the identification of what bat species is flying above you. And so I believe it was reported that it was mostly Mexican free-tailed bats, but there was also a mix of a few other native bat species in there as well. At least that's from what I can recall. Yes?
For the bats with the white nose fungus, is there any way that they can get better, or do you know of anything like that?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I think that a great resource for that sort of information on how to properly care for bats if you were to find one, or even more information on white nose syndrome would be Bat Conservation International. In fact, I believe in 2006 when they discovered white nose syndrome, that was actually at Bracken Cave. And because they were able to, conserve Bracken Cave, they're able to do a lot of research and they're doing a lot of excellent work in regards to conserving our wonderful bats in the world. Yes?
What's being done to alter the rhetoric, the belief and fear that people have that they're all rabbits, or
Right.
they're going to fly in your hair, like you said?
Right. So like.
And then also to change the mindset of many cities where they are badly cutting off all the fronds and being just a carrot top of the front.
Oh,
And
man,
it
I mean.
really bugs me to see that.
Yeah, so I guess what's being asked is, well, what's being done, right? What kind of, are there any campaigns, are there any movements? And I would say, I believe so. I mean, if you're someone like me who really just kind of connects with these little critters, then I think, it's obvious. You're going to learn as much as you can. You're going to be surrounded by, all the information on how to help these critters. And I think films like Deep in the Heart was a really great exposure to me. I learned so much about Texas nature, including the bats, and it sort of just kind of starts there. And hopefully presentations like this, or presentations like Anita Westervelt's as well, kind of brings attention to this. These are myths, these are harmful myths, and the bats are actually quite important for our ecosystem. I think that the more that we continue to talk about it, the more people continue to understand, the more they'll want to conserve it. So I think that really is what we can do. And I think maybe the Palm Society also has written a few articles, or maybe has a few choice words to say about palm pruning here in the valley as well. So I think they would be a great resource to also check out in that regard too. Yes?
How many pups do they have here?
Well, I don't know about every species, but I do know that Mexican free-tailed bats have one pup a year. So that cave with 15 plus million bats, if they're essentially doubling every summer, which I think is incredible. Yes?
How long do they live?
That's a great question. How long do they live? I actually don't know that very basic fact. I think they can live, it varies depending on the species. But I'll definitely make sure to include that in my presentation next time. Yes?
A couple of the pictures seem to have grubs or different kinds of insects that are maybe on the ground. Do they crawl around on the ground, some of them?
Yeah, they actually are capable of crawling around in the ground. And young pups actually don't have the ability to take off from the ground. So if a pup falls from the cave or is or maybe caught by a branch or a cactus pad or something, they'll actually have to climb their way back up to a high position. That way they can kind of get a little bit of leverage and they can take off. But a mature adult bat can actually take off from the ground. But yeah, they do have the ability to climb. they're essentially hands, right? Like we looked at it, so they use their fingers essentially to kind of climb. They have a little thumb piece. Yes.
You mentioned how several bats eat agricultural pests. Do farmers utilize them in like in a concerted way? Like they have bat boxes and stuff?
Oh yeah, I didn't even get to touch on bat houses or bat boxes or anything like that. I would love to have a bat box in my house, and not just a commercial one that you can buy at Natural Bridge Cabins or something. I'm talking about a big, beefy, for like, something that, and it's also high up there too. That would be really cool. And I do know that in Bat Conservation International, they actually have a free PDF blueprint on how to build your own bat houses. But again, I've seen them. They sell them at I'm sure they sell them at any of the State Park Cave Caverns gift shops, and then they also sell them at, I've seen some at Bass Pro Shop too. Wild Birds Unlimited, yeah, that's also really great. I believe they mentioned that they have them there too. Oh no, go ahead, Christine.
We had a bat box installed, I think, by Billy Griffin at Ramsey Park, and it was at a location that we could shine up a flashlight and see, and yes, the bats definitely moved in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and just recently I saw, it was just something on Facebook, so I don't know the validity of it, but it was, imagine taking old palm leaves and then sort of kind of hanging them like on curtains, and then just kind of when you have a bunch of clothes, you press them close together, and then they raise that up, and that kind of creates a little more natural bat house. I didn't include it onto this, but do the farmers here in the valley? I'm not quite sure. I hope so, because this is free, and it's also it's balanced, right?
Teacher Mazatlan needs to make an artificial cave.
Right. We definitely. I mean, it'd be so cool if we could make an artificial cave. We'd probably flood a lot, but our buildings are the cracks in buildings. I know that the McAllen parking lot in the downtown area, I know that bats live in the cracks of that building. I've seen them fly out, and then in the Congress Bridge, that is essentially like a man-made cave. Essentially, the conditions that it leaves, because they're literally living in between the cracks of there, with the cars rolling over them. Martin, you had a question? How long do they sleep? They're nocturnal, so they sleep. I guess normal hours just flipped, right? They'll take off in the. It's cool because in Bracken Cave you can choose to visit an evening bat flight or a morning bat flight, because just like clockwork, they'll leave in the evenings, usually around 8 or 7:30 to 8, and they'll also return back around the same time in the morning. I guess that would probably have to be the next one that I go visit, because I've already gone so many times. Oh, another cool fun fact that I just had no space to fit. I believe there's just so much guano in that cave. I believe it's about 100 feet of it. Also, it's full of flesh-eating beetles for some reason. So I don't know what's going on there, but if they give me the opportunity, I will dive in there. I will go. I want. Yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah, they eat mosquitoes and mosquito-sized insects as well. So I mean, I know how much people don't really like mosquitoes. I don't either. At Quinta, we don't really have a lot of mosquitoes, and I'm assuming that it's because that's a space like that is providing nice habitat, and things kind of sort of balance each other out when you bring nature home, right? So, any other questions?
The mosquitoes react to the echolocation.
Oh, that's actually cool. I'm not sure about the mosquitoes, but there is a specific species of moth, I believe it's the tiger moth, that actually has evolved, they actually send out their own signal that cancels the echolocation of the bats. So, that's super cool. I mean, when you figure that out, I mean, I think you're I don't know, that's really fascinating when I learned that. Excuse me? I need to do more research on, the actual anatomy of it. What is, of a moth? It blocks the signal. Yeah, it blocks the signal, and I think the bat just doesn't even know what's going on. It's like, oh, it just disappeared. Yes?
Does UV
You'll be black lighting for lots at night here,
I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and I do know that I know that there are some urban exploiters, and so I'm not sure about UV lights, but you know, if you're like in the city and you see like the street lights, there's moths everywhere. There'll actually be bats kind of just like hanging around there. You know, they kind of take advantage of that. I don't know about UV light though, but that's something I definitely need to do my own research on. Yes.
Let me squeeze in three questions real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I live on Sunshine, half a block off Sunshine in downtown Harlan. Of course, it's very well lit, and there used to be lots and lots and lots of bats at night. You could see them, they're gone, they've been gone for years. Is that typical for a bats to come and go like that?
You know, I mean, I don't know. I see a lot of bats at Quinta. I see a lot of bats over there in the mission spot. I definitely need to spend some time around the valley and see where these hot spots are at, like you're talking about, and see what's, you know, if there's anything that's been missing or taken away. You know, right at the moment, you're not going to see a lot of bats just because we're transitioning into the fall. Of a lot of the migratory species have already kind of heading back down south. But no, that's a great question. And I live in Harlingen, so maybe I can go. I want to see what the space looks like that you're talking about. Yes? Another
Yeah, they're gone, I've seen them in years. It used to be very, very thick out there. So their absence is noticeable. The question I've got is, what animal predates bats? If they're hiding, what are they hiding from?
Oh, right. What animal predates bats? Like what kind of caused them to evolve the way that they did? What made them leave the ground? I don't know the exact answer to that, but what I believe is that once the age of the dinosaurs ended, there was this big niche left that was mostly taken by birds up in the sky, but bats somehow managed to kind of fit themselves into there, and they've been pretty successful. Yes?
And my third question is, I haven't heard of Hamilton Pool, because I'm probably older than most other people in here. I haven't heard of Hamilton Pool in 20 or 30 years outside of Austin, where we used to go. Any bats in Hamilton Pool? Is that known as a bat spot?
Hamilton Pool? I don't know where that is. I'm sorry, but I'll ask you about it after the presentation, after I'm done here. But I think I'll reserve any other questions for after the presentation. I'm really grateful to see y'all here tonight. Thank you.